Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Comu. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites throughout the communities of Massachusetts. The communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight on the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as local parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. So, in today's episode, we'll be discussing the Town Farm at the Chicopee Almshouse, located in Chicopee, Massachusetts. So, why was the Town Farm started?
The Town Farm itself was started because Chicopee became a town in 1848, and every town in Massachusetts needed to have a town farm with an almshouse on it. That's where the poor people will live. And Chicopee's didn't last very long because at some point they decided to join in with the state almshouse, which was in Munson, Massachusetts. And not every community did that, but Chicopee was one of the communities that did that at that point. So we're going to talk about this town farm and where the almshouse is located, and also we're going to talk about the burials at that town farm. That's right. And I'm going to tell you about the people that are buried there, and whether or not their bodies are still there. So, the town farm was started for a reason that it was a requirement. When you start a new town in Massachusetts, you needed to have a school, a cemetery, a meeting house, and a town farm, or a place where the poor can live. And the almshouse is always associated with the town farm, or most of the time at least. And the almshouse was on land that is now around the northeastern corner of Ondrick Drive and East Street, extending all the way out to Crestwood Street. Right, so that's where the town farm was. The almshouse was probably somewhat towards close to East Street, and then the farm was probably towards the back itself. I know there was a large oak tree on there because they said the burials took place near an oak tree.
And when was the almshouse? Where was the almshouse located?
Okay, the almshouse, of course, was located on that property, and I want to try to find exactly where it was, but maps are very scarce during that period of time, 1840s, 1850s, 1860s. And in the 1860s, early on, it was moved out to Munson. So I want to try to find a map. Now, my best guess is that it was probably very close to the road because almost all homes back in the 1800s were positioned very close to the road. So it must have been close to East Street. And it's probably close to Ondrick Drive. And that would have been the juncture where the driveway would have been. But I want to verify that through use of maps.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any of his various tours or find out more information, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find podcasts and videos of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for other inquiries or private tours, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, and his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the first burial at the town farm.
The first of the two known burials was an Ira Olney. The death was February 28th, 1857. Now, she was sure at the Chicopee Almshouse, which was on that town farm, and she would be buried on that town farm property. And they said it was near a large oak tree. I don't know if it still exists or not. Now, besides the almshouse on that property, there also was what was called a pest house, and she was in there. And so that would probably have been in the back of the property. So the almshouse, and then the farm, and then the very back would have had a pest house. And there might have been other kinds of infectious disease houses there. Pest house means the place where smallpox victims would have lived when they had the disease. She would have died of it, and she would have buried very close by. Of course, you don't want that body around very long. You want to bury it very quickly because smallpox is extremely contagious and deadly. So she is buried there. I have found her death record. All right, and so it says right on the death record, yes, town farm of the Almshouse.
And Harvey Reed was the second burial. Tell us about that.
Okay, so Harvey Reed died 2 years later, December 20th, 1859, at the same location, the town farm at Chicopee Almshouse. He also died in the pest house of smallpox and was buried there. So he was also in basically a shack in the back of the property. Right. This is 2 years and 10 months later after the first burial. Of course, other people would have died at the town farm's almshouse. Other people would have died in that pest house there. Other people might have died of infectious diseases, but their bodies would have been taken where their family wanted them buried. So these are the two that the family didn't say anything, or they just wanted them buried at site. Okay, so two very serious cases. Now, there's a third case, supposedly. And supposedly that third case is a child of maybe 1 or 2 years old. I cannot find the death record, and that's too bad. Supposedly there's 3 burials. I've only found 2 documented records. Now, supposedly that child was quite young and was living there only because the mother of the child was living at the almshouse, so the baby was there too. And that would be wonderful to find. I know they weren't always very careful with children's locations of burial, and I can't even find a child that corresponds to that time frame, 1848 to 1860, that might have been buried there. But it's a good mystery to look into, and knowing me, I will try to figure out who it is. But Ira and Harvey are the only 2 known. Now, these streets are now with homes all over the neighborhood. The town farm is gone, the almshouse is gone, the pest house is gone. What happened to the burials? Are they still on the property? Are they still near the oak tree? Did someone ever remember, oh, this was used as a burial ground too? When most of the houses, to me, out there look like Cape Cod homes from the 40s or 50s, did they remember that 90 years earlier there were 2 burials there at least? Who knows at this point? And I'll keep checking. Maybe the city register of Chicopees, when it came out on an annual basis, would say something about it. Either the cemetery department or another department might have a message. So I'll keep looking around. But it's a big mystery, and thanks for listening to this podcast.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of our other tours on our other podcasts on this website as well.